Planet of the Apes is my favorite, and to me, the best trilogy of all time. Bear in mind, I haven't seen the Big Mama trilogy, and I'm sure that that's a close contender. These movies are tragic, inspiring, epic, thought-provoking, and unlike French Montana, they just get better and better with each movie. Y'all raved about how much you love analytical blank boy, so today, I'm gonna take y'all on a deep dive of everything why I believe Caesar to be the best protagonist ever, and Planet of the Apes to be the greatest movie trilogy of all time. Going into the first installment, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, I really don't think you could imagine nor prepare yourself for how good it truly is. It's a movie about a monkey, like yeah, he beats his chest, yeah, he throws his shit at some people. But Rise does a perfect job of starting the trilogy off with a blank slate. Thankfully, you don't need to watch niggas dressed up in a gorilla suit like it's fucking SpongeBob SquarePants. From the original movies, you don't gotta watch She-Hulk and the Eternals to understand a damn Spider-Man movie here. They set the world up perfectly, introducing you to Caesar and Will, James Franco's character. This was before he got blacklisted from Hollywood for clapping his college students.
This is a sick Negro!
There's also so many integral plot points they have to set up in this movie for the future of the franchise. They set up the start of the simian flu, building the entire world, the escape of the apes, Caesar's character growth most importantly, and the relationships he's built that will carry on for the rest of the movies, all in one movie. And it is incredibly paced. You never feel like they're stuffing too much in your face. You never want shit stuffed in your face. One constant these movies all have is the deeply emotional storytelling. From the moment Caesar is taken in by Will as a baby, you feel protective over him. Nothing better happened to this damn chimp. And you see as their bond grows together where Caesar no longer becomes just a lab experiment, but part of Will's family. Like Will's father is suffering from dementia. Nigga can't remember seeing Avatar The Last Airbender live action movie. I'm jealous of him. It's Caesar who springs into action when some dude starts pressing him over crashing his car, attacking him. But it's not because he's just some crazed chimp. It's because he loves so strong and will protect who he deems to be part of his family to all ends, which is a part of Caesar's character that will carry through the entire trilogy, and just a tiny glimpse into the depth of his character. Caesar is obviously the heart of this movie. This movie is Caesar's story. He starts off the movie very naive, curious, unexposed, to then when he's taken away from Will to go live with other apes, you see him become very scared and angry at his circumstances. Niggas literally fucked up my son's drip the very first day. They was bullying him cause he's been spoon-fed his whole life.
This guy's a gangster? His real name's Clarence. And Clarence's parents have a real good marriage.
Niggas will bully you for having loving parents. To then how Caesar evolves into a revolutionary leader who gains the trust and respect of all his fellow apes, finding his mission, his purpose, to the point where he even turns his back on his past life. Remember when I said highly emotional? Yeah, seeing Will come back for Caesar and Caesar refusing to leave with him, which at that point in the story, for all intents and purposes, Will is Caesar's father as far as he's concerned. This was the man who took care of him once his mom died, the man who nurtured him and taught him. And it's so hard to see him reject his love after so desperately wanting nothing more than to go back home. He had the window from his childhood drawn onto his cell for comfort, a representation of home. The way how they're able to convey such emotion in a scene like this. No dialogue, no giant set pieces, just a character wanting nothing more than to be home. Cinema. But physically and also symbolically, he erases that shit. Some shitty network like the CW would have had the character go, "I was sad about being here alone, but now I don't care anymore. I found my purpose and people." But actual talented writers like the ones working on this movie can explain all of that to the audience in just 2 scenes with no one speaking. He used his sweater, a symbol of domestication, to wipe away the window. In this moment, Caesar has decided the window that I've lived in for all of my life up until this point is not enough. And Caesar turning on his past isn't a thing out of pettiness or revenge on some mean girl shit. Although Will does come to visit him and he's excited thinking he gets to go home, but is told by Will, "I can't take you yet," the optimism turned to sadness/acceptance and then anger. While that can be the catalyst, it isn't the reason. The reason is because he has found his desire for freedom and belonging. Caesar understands now, I'm not a human, I'm an ape, and apes together strong. It is a development in his character that feels 100% natural throughout. You never feel it's some Game of Thrones Daenerys shit, where she cared about innocent people, then 2 seconds later, it was fuck you nigga, let's die. You see every step of how Caesar gets to this point, and it doesn't feel dragged out. You see the confusion in the beginning of Caesar thinking he's human. Will tells him he's not a pet, but then why am I on a leash like that dumbass dog over there? To then the understanding of what and who he is, rejecting his past and starting a new future, and you root for him the entire way. The two villains are some dickheads, Dodge Landon and Steve Jacobs. Steve Jacobs is the personification of corporate greed and capitalism, doing nothing throughout the movie with any intent other than to turn a profit.
You make history, I make money.
Doesn't matter who it hurts in the process. Apes, people, doesn't matter. And then there's Dodge Landon, who's the personification of authoritarianism. Dickhead just be mistreating the apes, spraying them with that cold ass hose and shit. They don't have the most depth as villains, but they don't need to. We don't need 8 backstories of these niggas seeing how his hoe left him, so now it's fuck monkeys, and his dad used to beat him.
Just having fun with off limits in Mister's house.
Nigga, did I just catch you having fun?
And starve him, so now he's a money-hungry bastard. The focus is on Caesar, and they serve their purpose to not only the plot, but progressing Caesar as a character. Dodge is literally the catalyst for one of the greatest moments in cinematic history. The masterful writing plus the performance by Andy Serkis as Caesar, which is fucking insane he doesn't have an Oscar for, by the way. Nigga was storytelling without speaking for most of the movie. It's an ape standing in front of a mirror, and I can tell you exactly how he feels, knowing deep down what he is, touching his birthmark, face full of confusion and mortification, all without a word. Meanwhile, niggas making millions doing this.
I need you to give me the stone.
Combine all of that together, and it makes it so that everything Caesar feels, you feel. He's the GOAT. It's very rare you see such a combination of ridiculously engaging plot and brilliant character study all in one. Like, I'm sorry, I fuck with Invincible, but I hate Mark Grayson, and it does take away from the show for me. Niggas will be like, hey Mark, you have to kill the villain before 10 million more people die.
Nah, we ain't doing that.
Coming into the movie, I would have thought this was a movie about James Franco's character, after he just clapped some student for an A+, as the main character reacting to the events of apes taking over the planet. But what the writers did here was say, fuck the how the apes rose, let's focus on the why, which turned out to be a far more interesting approach. It's such a subtle yet brilliant tweak in perspective. Like, imagine how much better the Transformers movies could have been if instead of watching the movie through Sam Witwicky, with the movie showing us shit like this,
because this is illegal. She's a minor.
We're protected by the Romeo and Juliet laws.
we instead saw the movie through the eyes of Optimus and got to explore how war affects him and the Autobots emotionally, what they've lost, and what they're truly hoping to gain back physically or spiritually. And after all of this, after seeing Caesar go from thinking he's human and living with Will, thinking that's his father, even though it's clearly not, bitches be like, this is your son, John, trust. Caesar being ashamed of who he is as an ape, to then being essentially put in a prison, having everything he's known and loved stripped away from him, beaten by his peers, like the Cavs did to that nigga J.R. Smith after his finals fuck up, beaten by his captor, had his trust played with by his father. He's been pushed to the point of snapping. I'm tired of living my life through this window. I'll take what I deserve. What all of us who have been tested, poked, and prodded our whole lives, we're taking our freedom. He now identifies all the apes in here with him as his family. Maurice the orangutan, Rocket the bonobo, Buck the gorilla, all have been through what he's been through. They're the only ones he can truly trust. We've all been abused. We've all been used for the gain of humans. It's a certain level of connection that someone like Will just couldn't understand to the same level with Caesar, despite how much he does truly care. And even the process of Caesar getting the other apes' trust is brilliant. He shows Rocket strength, but also the capacity for mercy. He makes Rocket feed the other apes cookies to show kindness. He shows empathy by freeing Buck. This is a true leader. The group is not built by fear, it's built by love, which makes them unbreakable. Apes together strong. And it's time for us to get the fuck up out of here. Someone need to teach that leadership shit to Draymond Green. leading to the climax, which is the escape scene. The payoff being ultimately their freedom feels so well earned. These apes have been through hell emotionally and physically, fought for their lives for this, and deserve it. It would have been so easy for the selling point of this movie to just be, hey, look, big ass gorilla versus helicopter. Isn't that cool? And it would have worked. Alvin and the Chipmunks does millions every time. Niggas will truly watch anything. But because the writing and character work around setting up why the action is happening was so well done, that's how you have a movie that has action with substance. Like, I fuck with the boxing in Shang-Chi, but gun to the back of my head, I have a better chance telling you 5 DDG songs before I can tell you why Shang-Chi was fighting his dad at the end and the significance of it from a storytelling perspective. I have no clue. This isn't just action for the sake of action. This is literally them showing the result of the movie up until this point, which is a literal revolution, while still being epic and a giant spectacle, which is still what you want. I mean, Buck literally takes down a fucking helicopter and dies for the cause.
That's why he's the GOAT!
Rest in peace, my GOAT. Koba pushing Steve Jacobs off the map after Caesar okays it. It's as much of a scene of him getting revenge as much as it is the underlying metaphor of them letting go of their shackles. Steve Jacobs, people like Steve Jacobs, are their shackles. They are rising up against a system of oppression they have too long been subjected to. They are rising against the abuse and fear and shame that has been placed onto them by the systems around them. A window is not enough. Y'all won't shame us anymore. You can't tell me what liberties as a living being I'm allowed and not allowed to have. And it all culminates to the last scene. After Caesar and his apes have crossed the Golden Gate Bridge, finally grasping freedom, Will finds him, making one last-ditch effort to have Caesar come home. Home to back behind that window in the attic. Koba attacks Will, Caesar tells him to fuck off, and opens his hand to Will. A symbol in which throughout the movie has been a sign of permission and forgiveness is no longer that. It is a sign of parity. We are on the same playing field now. As Caesar leans into Will to tell him,
Caesar is home.
Just absolute cinema, man. So Dawn of the Planet of the Apes takes place 10 years after the events of Rise. The apes have their own civilizations. Caesar had a son, Blue Eyes, a wife, and a new son born, Cornelius. He's clearly been busy busting down cheeks. Rocket is still here with his son Ash, Koba, Maurice.
The gang's all here.
While the human population has been decimated by the simian flu, scattered in fortified colonies on some The Last of Us shit. And it would have been so easy for the writers to go, hey, apes versus humans, part 2, but for the sake of the world this time. It would have been, while predictable, acceptable, cause it wouldn't be anything out of the realm of what we've seen before. Goku beat Frieza ass to save the world, so now the next nigga he faces, he's beating them to save the universe. Thanos gave Belt in Infinity War, so what's endgame? Them getting that run back versus Thanos. It's typical writing. But while the conflict with humans as an antagonist is prevalent and relevant, the heart and focus of this movie lies between Caesar and his chief in command, Koba. Yup, the villain of this movie is a fellow ape, and a chopped one at that. It's worth noting that Matt Reeves directs this movie and the third one. So while Rise was an amazing introduction, he takes the franchise to a whole other level. I mean, this is the nigga who went on to make the Batman. He knows a thing or two about making a complex and incredibly detailed story. Another thing worth noting is that the visuals were already great, but they get taken to a whole nother fucking level as well. There is no distinguishing aspect of these motion captured apes from the real world ones. The world is beautiful, the sets are massive, the cast of apes are bigger, and niggas really be making excuses for the MCU billion-dollar corporation putting out shit like this. The conflict of the movie starts when Caesar and Rocket's sons, Blue Eyes and Ash, run into a human. The human panics, shooting Ash, who survives, and this is the first domino effect that sets off the chain of events later on in the movie. Unlike Rise, which does focus on Caesar a lot, it is still more of a plot-focused approach to a movie. This movie has the ability to end up anywhere it wants to. There doesn't have to be a specific endpoint. It doesn't have to end up with apes escaping. And because of that, the characters, humans, apes, or whatever the fuck Koba ugly ass is, dictate where the story ends up. This movie is decided by character actions. And the main one who creates all of the conflict is Koba. Like I referenced earlier, Koba and Caesar are the heart of this movie. With humans now in the picture, they have very different methods of how they want to handle this. Koba wants a war. All he could see is red because he hates humans.
I'm trying to catch him. I'm trying to catch him. I want to catch him.
While Caesar is the complete opposite. He wants peace. He wants to have no interactions whatsoever with the humans. They fundamentally desire different dynamics living alongside the humans on this earth. And Koba isn't gonna listen to Caesar this time. Like when the humans ask Caesar if they can come up to the mountain to repair a hydroelectric dam so that they could restore the power to their colony, Caesar lets them so that they could get it done and never need to come back again. Koba, on the other hand, finds the humans alone at the bottom of the mountain and smokes his ass, going directly against Caesar's wishes. Koba murders Caesar, well, so he thought at least, framing it on the humans, inciting an all-out war between apes and humans.
Apes must attack human city!
One that Caesar was so desperately trying to avoid. Caesar was trying nothing more than to preserve life. Koba causes nothing more than pain, destruction, death of his own and humans, throwing away the good life they had. It makes no sense, right? Well, it starts to when you dive into their past a little bit more and get to understand why their actions are their actions. Koba was in Rise of the Planet of the Apes. He was tortured, experimented on, cut open, scarred, and only ever saw the absolute worst of humans. He was oppressed by them, expecting to never experience anything else in his life. He knew nothing else but pain, until Caesar came along like Super Chimp and freed Koba and all the other apes. Koba has never known the love of a human. He sees no good in their existence. Imagine if the only music you ever heard was a Nelly Choppa. You would despise music. You would believe there was never any good to come from music. While Caesar, he's heard Michael Jackson. He knows that while there's bad, there's also some good in humans. He grew up with Will. He understands there's nuance to their existence. But Koba doesn't, and he doesn't care to as far as he's concerned.
Human. What? Human. What? Human. What?
Put yourself in Koba's shoes. Well, he don't really wear shoes. Put yourself in Koba's feet. You've been enslaved your whole life, experimented on, gained freedom, and the people who did it are back? Yeah, anything other than their immediate eradication is the wrong move in my mind. Koba is hateful, and the hate is rooted in fear. Very real fear that they will do what they've once done to him again if given the chance. And anyone who comes in the way of that, even Rocket's son, Ash, who stands up to Koba during the war telling him Caesar wouldn't want this, can die for it. Caesar his fucking self can die for it. And this directly clashes with Caesar on a psychological and physical level, of course. Koba tells Caesar loves humans more than his sons, and Koba really believes that.
Caesar love humans more.
Caesar puts the pause on that ugly nigga for trying to test him, but in that moment, Koba feels vindicated. He feels correct in his assertion. It's like when you tell someone you failed the test, didn't you? And they start getting angry. No nigga who passed the test gon' get that angry. I must be right. Koba, more than anything, is selfish. And the other side of this movie is Caesar, my GOAT, where they dive even deeper into his character here. You see his dynamic as a father, as a brother, as a husband, as a fully fledged out leader, and the difficulties having to balance that. Caesar's priority is his people. His priority is keeping the apes safe. The reason he doesn't want war as much as he doesn't is because he knows that'll lead to the apes facing heavy casualties and trauma. He doesn't care to necessarily kumbaya with the humans, having them niggas over for tea parties and splitting a piece of tree bark together, but to exist without fighting one another. But it's in this where Caesar fucks up. He's so narrow-minded about preserving his civilization from the humans, it never occurs to him that the biggest threat to their survival is one of their own. You know what James G. Frazier said? Niggas be wildin'. And also, small minds cannot grasp great ideas. Caesar thought too narrow about what threats exist to his family of apes, and ultimately it costed them and the humans extreme needless loss and pain in the end. And all of this comes to head in the final battle. Koba tells Caesar he's weak, and Caesar says,
Cobra, weaker. That's why he's leaving me!
and they of course start boxing. This town isn't big enough for the two of us, while the other apes just watch. Their relationship is beyond repair at this point. Koba refuses to end up in a cage getting called chopped and doing torturous experiments, and Caesar won't let Koba drag the apes into a pointless war for his own selfish fears. One must die. Koba has convinced himself in this moment that he's fighting for the apes.
Cobra, fight for ape!
What?
So that they never face the life they once had. But that's bullshit. Koba fights for Koba. Caesar fights for the apes. You literally see it in their fight. The humans are down below having a very similar conflict actually. Dreyfus wants to boom the apes on the construction tower, and Malcolm is telling him it doesn't have to be this way. Ultimately, Dreyfus does it, blowing up the building in an attempt to kill the apes. It's Caesar who's helping his fellow apes, while Koba lifts up metal off of them just to get a gun to use it on Caesar, resting it right back down. Caesar wins, because despite recovering from a gunshot wound, Koba malnourished ass can't hang. Koba hangs on for his life and says to Caesar his own words, the pillar of what their society is built on: apes don't kill apes. But Caesar, who once failed to recognize the threat that his own fellow apes could pose, failed to see the back door coming, tells Koba is not ape and sends him to his death. It's just such engaging storytelling and character work. There aren't any villains, just two victims of their past circumstances reacting. The character-driven plot is great, but this movie is also a spectacle to watch. That's going on while Caesar's perceived to be dead after Koba tried to JFK him feels tragic. You feel how meaningless and avoidable this was, which makes it so gut-wrenching to watch. You're absolutely engaged. War feels treated with care here. It isn't just a ridiculous show on display. This is truly the doing of fear, hate, and misunderstanding, and you feel that. Again, this movie is highly emotional. After Caesar gets shot, and Malcolm and the other group of good humans that trust Caesar find and heal him at his old house he once lived in with Will. Caesar finds an old camcorder, showing his old life. Andy Serkis acting his ass off, showing every emotion in Caesar's facial expression, the sadness, nostalgia, longing feeling, but gratitude, all without a word being said. It's my personal favorite scene in the entire movie. When you have a whole movie driven by character decisions based on emotions, you're gonna get an insanely emotional movie. And I just gotta glaze the effects one more time. Look at the fucking fight scene with Caesar versus Koba. Look at the expression on Koba's face when he asks for forgiveness. Pure sinister intent. For a lot of people, Dawn is the best movie in the trilogy, and I can get that. But for me, like I said, they get better with each installment. War for the Planet of the Apes for me is one of the few perfect movies I've ever seen. 5 out of 5 stars for me on Letterboxd. Follow me, by the way, link in the description. I follow back. I think each time the movies keep improving every aspect of themselves. This movie is the most emotional one yet. Yes, somehow they top the first two. The cinematography is absolutely ridiculous. The effects are amazing, and Andy Serkis gives his best performance yet. While Rise was the brewing and ultimately the doing of a revolution, Dawn was the culmination of clashing ideas leading to a war. Going into War of the Planet of the Apes, you probably really expected a huge final showdown, final battle for the control of Earth, like it presents itself to be in the trailers. But if you've been paying attention to this video, these movies love to take a different angle on rudimentary story topics, such as war. Caesar isn't fucking King Leonidas in the movie 300, leading his ragtag group to victory. It's far less epic than that. This is the most personal these movies get, and at the heart of it is, of course, Caesar. The war between apes and humans is only the background to an intense character study movie. Both movies leading up till now, Caesar has shared the plot with other characters in some capacity, but not this movie. This movie is focused on Caesar and only Caesar, and more specifically, Caesar's pain. The movie is not about a war. This movie is depressing as hell because it's a movie delving into every character's pain and trauma. The movie starts with Caesar's family being murdered by the colonel, Blue Eyes, who was a major character in the last movie, is dead. Caesar's wife is dead. All that's left is Caesar and his son Cornelius. And we see that this pushes Caesar over the edge. He sends out his family, his ape colony, to go find a safe place far away, and leaves them, embarking on a journey of his own, a path of revenge. He's going to kill the Colonel. It's the first time we see Caesar making 100% selfish decision. He's not thinking of anyone else. He doesn't care what happens to him. He doesn't care who needs him to lead them. He wants revenge. Nigga was tweaking so bad, Maurice had to tell him, "You sound like Koba, my nigga. Relax." Which does give Caesar a moment of post-nut clarity of like, what have I become? This ain't a movie about Caesar versus humans and oppression like in Rise. This isn't a movie of Caesar versus a fellow ape and humans with a potential war looming like Dawn. This is Caesar versus Caesar. We learn, as Caesar learns, that under the right circumstances, he too can be pushed to the same hate he has been fighting against in the entire trilogy so far. He abandons his son. He abandons his people. He abandons his only son who needs him. He leaves so that he can satiate his hate. Caesar is broken. Caesar isn't the perfect leader here. Caesar is flawed. Caesar failed. And we'll get into how and why. But first, I think it's important to mention that Rocket, Maurice, Bad Ape, and Luca, the 4 apes that join Caesar on this mission, truly do save him. Not only physically, but save his soul. Rocket, Maurice, and Luca have been by his side since the beginning, and they refuse to let him embark on this journey alone. Despite how much Caesar insists to go alone, they won't let him. They some real ass niggas. Luca is the muscle, as the gorilla. Rocket tells Caesar he knows what it's like to lose a son, having had Ash killed by Koba and Dawn. And Maurice tells Caesar he's going to make sure Caesar makes it back. And they matter a lot in this movie, because in situations like this, where they find a little girl, Caesar was ready to let that chopper sing on her. And it's Maurice who is his conscience and tells him to relax, comforting the little girl with the toy and bringing her along for the journey, knowing that she will die there alone. The girl isn't able to speak as much as she tries. Maurice has compassion, patience, empathy, and care in comparison to Caesar, who is completely losing all of that. And all of this built-up hate Caesar has ends up blowing up in his face when Caesar makes his way to the Colonel's holdup and finds out that his people have been captured. While on the run, the military found them and captured them, and Caesar wasn't there to lead them. Caesar failed them. And they know he did. Caesar gets captured and thrown into the prison and sees the other apes who once worshipped him turn their back on him. His son crying out to him. Everything they had is lost. And he literally says to himself, "What have I done?"
What have I done?
The Colonel, who is causing all of this, has one very simple goal: preserve humanity. Same as Caesar with his apes. The simian flu is rendering people mute and animalistic, and he will stop at nothing to make sure it is placed in check so that humanity survives, because humanity is on its fringes. The Colonel speaks about how he had to murder his own son. Once he told Caesar that, Caesar was looking at him thinking,
"This nigga is crazy."
But Caesar's character is rebuilt in the same movie. We see the very real, and understandably so, deterioration of him. Niggas like Obito wanted to blow up the earth because his girl died. Mind you, she wasn't even with that nigga. So you can't really blame Caesar, cause niggas have done much worse for less. I root for his vengeance, but it's even more inspiring to root for his restoration. But it doesn't come easy. While they're building the wall, one of the apes fucks up cause his arthritis starts beating his ass, and they start giving him belt like how LeBron was doing the Raptors every time he plays them. Caesar stands up for the ape, inspiring the group. Their leader is back, and even in the face of a gun pointed right in his face, he refuses to back down. He demands water and food for his people, which is eventually granted. Caesar, however, gets put on the cross for his people, getting water thrown on him in the freezing cold, being starved and given no water to drink, left for dead, for his people. The Colonel knows Caesar is the source of all their courage. It's crazy too, because the Colonel tells Caesar he didn't even mean to kill Blue Eyes and his wife. They went there looking for Caesar and Caesar only. This is why the Colonel is doing his damnness to break Caesar, but Caesar won't let him, not again. He has the belief of the apes again. The little girl sneaks in and they make her give Caesar food and water. Rocket pulls up getting beaten and thrown into a cage and asks Caesar, is he okay? Good, cause we gotta make up a plan to get out of here. The apes all stand up together and signal to Caesar. Apes together strong. Caesar is back. The apes plan their escape, making their way out. But Caesar can't leave without one thing. The Colonel must die. The Colonel represents everything Caesar could have been if he continued down his path. Caesar was fighting a big war within himself. Fuck the one going on outside with apes getting blasted into smithereens. And the cause of that war within is because of an action done by the Colonel. So them confronting each other in one final climax felt inevitable. But it doesn't go the way anyone could have expected, because again, there's no final showdown. Caesar pulls up on the Colonel and sees him laying there, nose bleeding. He picked up the doll from the girl. She had the simian flu, and now he does too. The thing he feared the most, the thing he murdered his own son over, the thing that he got rid of all his humanity to avoid, he has become. So when Caesar points the gun at his head, the Colonel leans in. If he allows himself mercy, then he would have murdered his own son for nothing. He murdered his own men for nothing. He would have caused so much pain to everyone for nothing. Caesar's eyes filled with rage, sadness, eagerness to pull the trigger so bad, opts to not do it and rests the gun down, giving it to the Colonel to do it himself. Caesar throughout this entire trilogy has never harmed others for himself. He knocks out the dickhead zookeeper and rise to escape. He lets Koba kill Steve Jacobs for his own sanctity. He kills Koba for the protection of his people. But in this moment, Caesar would have been murdering a defenseless man for nothing more than to try and heal his broken heart. The Colonel's vulnerability snaps him out of it. He has to let that hate go. Caesar isn't a cruel character. He takes pity. He's not gonna kill him, but he's also not gonna let him suffer, putting the gun down and letting the Colonel do what he wants done to himself. Caesar's better than me. I would've hit that nigga with. Killing the Colonel won't bring his family back. It won't make him unfail his family. It won't make him feel any less pain. In this moment, Caesar forgives himself. But the Colonel, he can't forgive himself, taking the gun and offing himself. Caesar and the apes make their way to safety, but he's fatally wounded. He tells Maurice with tear-filled eyes, "You are home now."
Home now.
And closes his eyes, passing away. Caesar's journey comes to an end in the most beautiful way, watching his son and his family, his people, enjoy the life he's worked so hard, worked his entire life to grant them. Caesar did not fail. Caesar is a legend to his people, and his legend will live on. I said this in the beginning, but you see throughout this movie in a bunch of scenes that I've been showing, how Andy Serkis, like I said, deserved an Oscar for this performance here. Every expression on Caesar's face, whether anger, guilt, sadness, regret, it's all masterfully done and really brings the character to life. Planet of the Apes is a trilogy that perfectly represents Caesar's hero's journey. From hardship after hardship, foe after foe, knowing love and lost, learning yourself, losing yourself, and finding yourself. It all works as one cohesive tale of the ape who freed his people. Thank y'all for watching. Ranking and reviewing every Batman movie coming soon. That's gonna take some time, so I figured I'd drop this for now. Hope y'all enjoy. Make sure to subscribe. Thank y'all for 700K. Road to 800. Peace.